Hey, it started, I think. Okay, yeah. Hi. Good morning. My name's Waldo.
Modular.
How you doing?
Doing good, man. How are
Cool.
you?
I'm good. Nice and chill. Not too busy this week. Hey, it started, I think. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I've been a little busy, but
Oh, yeah.
no big deal.
Uh, right. I gotta get chat loaded as soon as I can remember how. There's the button. So we put it in here, and we go to OBS, and we go to chat, and we paste, and we hit OK, and then it should appear right down here or over there. That's cool too.
Yep.
And there it is. And then we can stop watching the stream. I think the chat stays up over here so I can see it. And it works. Okay, great.
Nice.
Getting better at this. Takes a little bit of practice. Um, so, as usual, we will discuss the news, and then you and I have some uh, fun healthcare debate stuff planned, and I've got some videos and some links, and you've brought your own as well. So feel free to send those to me whenever,
All right.
and we can get started. Oh my God, Kyle's already in chat. We already have a chatter. He's here and he's
Oh,
ready to go.
hello, Kyle.
uh, let's start with the news. Let me bring up my news links and swap to the screen for the news links. And there we go. There it is. The big news. Everybody's excited. Uh,
I
Mr.
mean,
Biden accidentally left some classified documents in an old office.
it happens.
It happens.
It happens. I can think of another guy that left some classified docs at his house.
Oh yeah? Who was that?
Yeah, the old Trumpster, man.
Did he leave them at his house or did he willingly steal them after he was told he couldn't take them? I
Oh, I
think
have
it
no
was
idea.
I think it was that second one.
Okay. I
Um,
don't think so, but I mean
uh, I that's what it seems like when the in so both sides are not the same here. I'm gonna uh, argue against an argument you didn't make, but some Republicans and conservatives are making. Both sides. See, everybody does it, and yeah, everybody does sometimes make mistakes, but sometimes Donald Trump knows that it's a mistake, does it anyway, and then lies about it afterward. And I think that's the big difference is you've got uh, Biden leaving things behind accidentally, and the NARA, the uh, National something records something, uh, didn't even know they were missing. So when his lawyers found them, if they were crooked lawyers, and you find things that nobody knows is missing, you shred them and pretend it never happened. But they didn't. They did the right thing. They did the honest thing and called NARA immediately and said, "Hey, we found these. Do you want them?" And they were like, "Yeah." And then they are investigating how it happened, and Mr. Joe Biden's lawyers are participating willingly with that investigation. Where
nice.
where Trump was told specifically ahead of time, you cannot take those. He did it anyway. Then when they said, "Hey, we know you took those. Please give them back," he refused, and then he lied about it. Then they put in legal documents like a subpoena. Give us those documents. He lied about it and refused. He got back some, but not all of them, and the rest he lied about and refused. And then they do a search warrant, and they find them and they bring them back, and then he lies about that and refuses to accept that it's real. Uh, that is, I think, the difference between the two sides. And honestly, I think you could extrapolate that explanation out to both sides on just about every issue. Uh, the Democrats are not perfect and they screw up, or they have a bad intention, or they don't do a thing right, and the Republicans do bad things on purpose and then lie about them
Well,
later.
hold on.
Yeah,
Trump might.
Trump might, and I mean he's the leader of the Republicans. He is
Um,
the frontish
well,
runner.
he was.
Hmm. He's not
I
anymore.
think that, well, there's a bit of a split going on. I mean, as evidenced by our speaker votes, there's a split in the party.
Hmm.
Um, Trump is not really so favored anymore. I mean, and it's now come down to the people that are still the hardcore Trumpers versus the Republicans at this point.
Hmm.
I definitely wouldn't call him the leader of the Republicans anymore.
Uh, okay. I mean, if he's, I don't know. I guess he doesn't. He is a leader, maybe not the leader.
Well, I'll put it this way: in 2016, there was nobody that, uh, there was nobody else that I supported as much as I supported Trump.
Hmm.
But in 2024, I lean more towards DeSantis if he ends up running against Trump.
Hmm.
So,
That's fine. Um, we can talk about that when it happens. Uh, this sentence right here: the American people deserve transparency and accountability for their most senior executive branch law enforcement officials, says a guy, which is great. I agree. Super cool. Investigate uh, Joe Biden, find out how those things got missed and why the NARA didn't even know they were gone. Figure out what to do. Sounds good. Um, Investigate Trump also and find out what happened. Sounds good to me. The issue is that this will be turned political. Anytime, uh, let's imagine, hypothetically for a moment, the Justice Department decides not to prosecute Biden or bring up any sort of a legal issue at all. It was an accident. The lawyers left it behind, and then they didn't even know they were missing, and problem goes away. Uh, that will cause conservatives to scream bloody murder. That it's not fair, and that Trump is being attacked by the Justice Department, and it's being weaponized against him, and it's a witch hunt, and they just don't like him and his hair, and because of that, they're weaponizing the Justice Department to harm him. And that'll be our politics. That'll be on the news. That'll be the headlines. That's what I will have to discuss with you.
well, the headlines certainly don't do any favors in that regard. Um, I mean, what did you get when the raid on Mar-a-Lago happened? Right. The headline was FBI raids Mar-a-Lago
Hmm.
for classified documents.
Hmm.
Right. So, but then you get um, the headlines for this: classified documents found in Biden's old home or office or whatever.
Hmm.
The headlines certainly paint a different picture for each one, right? Which may or may not be justified.
I think those are both correct headlines.
Okay, but they don't explain the context in the end of Trump took this stuff after he'd been voted out to Mar-a-Lago,
Hmm.
whereas I think the Biden documents are actually like what 6 pages
He
of
was,
classified information.
if I, well, I read one that said it was about 20 pages, and it was put there while he was vice president, and accidentally left there. So he was in office, took that to the office that he was working from, and when they left, vacated the office, when he left normally, they just got left behind.
Yeah. So you have two different situations happening,
Hmm.
but the headlines don't convey that.
Right, and
The headlines make it sound like they both did the same thing,
right,
and one of them got rated for it.
right,
Which,
and
yeah,
that will lead to conservatives online yelling about how both sides are the same and only one side gets punished.
I'll lump
And,
me with them.
and I'm not going to lump you in with them yet.
Hey, I'm a conservative, bro. You
I
can't
know.
just say conservatives.
They're, I know, but they aren't usually. Well, I will talk to them if they want to talk to me. Uh, um, but yeah, at the moment they're investigating, and that sounds good. Find out what happened. Speaking of willing and intentional lying, here's George Santos. Have you heard about this guy? He is amazing.
Not heard of this guy.
Oh, okay. He just got elected to Congress from New York. This is the list of things he lied about. I know you don't like Reddit, but I can't open the Washington Post article, so I just take somebody copy pasting it.
Nice.
uh, George Santos has lied a lot, and not even like about basic things we can look up. He went to a prestigious private school. He never went there. There's no record of him ever being there. Um, let's see. Graduated from Brock College in 2010 with a bachelor's degree in economics and finance. Said that he had a GPA average and he never attended it. He just didn't go. He's never been there. He's just making shit up. It's great. Um, let me see. He claimed,
Politician is a serial liar. What else is new?
well, mostly it's exaggerations.
It was a joke.
I know. Usually when they lie, and it's some sort of tiny exaggeration or a twist, not, hey, I got a degree at this college that he's never been to. This is a new level. This is great. Um,
He's
never got a degree.
exploring new territory.
Yeah,
You know,
never got a degree from NYU, even though he claims he did. Like, that's not something you lie about because we can just look and find out. Um, Grandson of Holocaust refugees, also not true. We can just find out that you are not, in fact, the grandson of Holocaust refugees. We can look that up, guy. Um,
incredible.
there's more. Worked at Citigroup and Goldman Sachs. No, he didn't. Um, let's see.
What's the point you're
Rep-
getting at?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a point for this one. I'm rambling for
Oh,
this.
okay.
I do not know what to make of this guy. I don't know what to do with him. Uh, can we just kick him out? I don't think they can. Uh, if I remember correctly, the House district doesn't have like a recall process um, because the terms are only 2 years. But what do we do with him?
Well, sounds like he's serving for 2 years.
I know. Is that it? We just. Oh, he claimed to have lost 4 employees at the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, and we just.
Holy fuck.
He. It's not true. He just made it up.
I get it. That's why I'm laughing.
I don't know what to do with this. Like, can I run as a Harvard law professor
Yes,
and win?
probably.
Um, I've mentioned. I don't know if I've mentioned it to you, but I think we are in the middle of the disinformation age. There was a Bronze Age, there was a Stone Age, there was a Space Age, there was an Information Age when the internet came up, and now we're in the disinformation age. And I am I don't know what to do about it. I guess I'll just contribute with the channel and just fill everybody with disinformation.
You know,
It's going to be
it's always
great.
a strategy.
All right, this will be great.
I think people
So,
are a little too trusting nowadays, actually, when it comes to not each other. They're not trusting enough with each other. But they are substantially um, trusting of authority figures. And so when someone presents themselves um, as an authority figure, people don't vet that claim anymore.
hmm
They don't they don't take a critical look at the actual authority that this person has, and they don't and having blindly assumed that they do have the authority they say they do, they will trust whatever it is that this person has to say. Um, and we're starting to see the effects of that, I think. I mean, and even if somebody is an authority on something, doesn't mean that they're correct.
right.
People have lost, I think, their sort of their critical eye when it comes to authority and the things that come from authority, both
hmm
in vetting the authority and vetting what they're saying. And that's a bit of a problem, I think. This is an extreme example of it. It seems this person is saying that he is a major authority figure on several topics, and it got him elected to federal office.
hmm
Yeah, that's a bit of a problem.
Okay. Um, yeah. Should I mean he's going to get to vote? Maybe if they're smart, they don't put him on any committees or anything like that, and just he still gets to vote for the budget and all kinds of fun stuff. It's going to be great. Mm, I think. Oh, since we're still on the House, here we go. Remember last week? Does not the all the crazy speaker votes and stuff like that?
Yeah,
And then I asked, can a Democrat also trigger the thing? And it seems they can. Uh, the rules put in place does not prohibit a minority from bringing forth the uh, speaker vote again.
nice.
A speaker will be
We're gonna have
removed from the
speaker
House.
votes every week.
We're
Let's
going to
do it.
have speaker votes every week, and it
So the government will stall out,
uh
and great, perfect. I love it.
that's
The less that they're able to fuck up, the better.
the shutting down of the government is a fuck up.
True.
It
Well, they'll have to
should
figure out.
continue.
Although I think they did just sign um, a new omnibus, didn't they?
Mm, I didn't think so. I mean,
Or am I was I looking at old news? Because
the debt ceiling is going to happen on like Thursday. We're going to hit the
nice.
debt ceiling on Thursday, which means that if they do not pass one by Thursday, some sort of raising of the debt ceiling, which is what they always do, uh, it will cause a shutdown on Friday, if I remember correctly. So we may be at government shutdown by this time next week. And honestly, I think that's what a lot of those uh, radical right wing guys like Matt Gaetz want. They want the government shutdown.
Well, maybe it'll happen. We'll see.
So yeah, if just 5 Republicans in the House join together with the United Democratic Caucus, the Speaker will be ousted and nothing can be done until a new Speaker is selected. So yeah, if one Democrat calls for the Speaker vote again, that vote goes up to a vote, and it could just get shot down. Uh,
Maybe it'll force them to actually work together for once.
I don't know. If it happens, I will be shocked and amazed, and I will bring it back up and let you know you were right. That they all worked together to get a thing done. Um,
I think there's going to end up being that has to be what happens. I mean, it's going to be there's too much political pressure that occurs the longer the government shut down. Because when the government shuts down, people stop getting paychecks.
right.
And of course, those people have families and they have friends, and those people then hear about the horrible politicians that are causing the government to remain shut down.
Hmm.
And it forces a certain amount of uh, expediency on those topics from the politicians. And I think that the end result will be that even if we do end up shutting down for a month, 2 months, three, that's about as long as it'll be. And then of course, federal employees get back paid for anything that any lost compensation. It's just a matter of do they have the funds to support themselves until the back pay comes about.
Does it actually cost more?
But
I think it costs more. I mean, we lose money. We waste money. The
well,
government
that's what the
shutdown
government
cost the
does.
economy $11 billion.
Well, the economy, yes, because the money is not flowing from the government at that point, and the economy is partially running on money coming from the government, right? Like the government has contracts with a lot of major companies that those contracts are not being paid while while the government's shut down, and so on and so forth, and the same for employees not being paid for however many months at a time.
Hmm. So it's a
Those employees they stop spending because they don't have the money to spend, and they need to save what they can for essentials. And the economy does suffer.
okay. Is anything positive come from that suffering? I I, I dig that sometimes you got to do hard things to accomplish a goal, but I don't see any benefit to such a shutdown.
Well, it depends on what the shutdown achieves. If certain things go into bills or certain things get taken out of bills that are necessary for the government to continue, or if it ends up being one of those things where, for once, our people, you know, made concessions and worked together on something, that's also a win.
Hmm.
So I do think there is benefit to it.
Hypothetically, there could be. I
Yes, and
suspect that there won't be.
we'll have to see if we even shut down and what happens in the aftermath of that. Um, but until that does, then it's just speculation. So
Hmm. Okay. Let's see. We've got Governor DeSantis targets trendy ideologies at Florida universities. So I think his exact word was, we must ensure that our institutions of higher learning are focused on academic excellence in the pursuit of truth, not the imposition of trendy ideologies. He, I don't like the idea of the governor of Florida telling colleges what they should and shouldn't teach.
colleges be focused on academic excellence.
And that is a wishy-washy word. That means don't teach racism. Don't teach critical race theory. Don't teach that trans people are humans.
Why not just teach your subject?
The subject is
If your subject
how.
is electrical engineering,
Uh-huh.
teach electrical engineering.
Great. And if your subject is redlining and how it affected black people in the country,
I don't think anyone has a degree in redlining.
they have a degree in sociology. And there are people going to school for sociology. And if that is an important part of sociology, it's an important part of um, how our system was set up. It's an important part of history. What if the history of uh, the country makes the country seem kind of racist. Mr. DeSantis would call that a trendy ideology, and it ought not be taught.
I think that we looked through the last contentious bill that was passed on this and found that it actually wasn't even that bad.
Oh, because it
Like
was.
we looked at it together,
Yeah, we
right?
looked at that the Don't Say Gay bill, which is what some
Okay.
people are calling it, and it is. What takeaway did you have from that? Maybe you and I
Not
came.
not that bad. Not as bad as uh, people were making it out to sound. I mean, we looked at the actual provisions of the bill, and you agreed
Mhm.
with like 8 out of 9 of them.
Right, because that ninth one is so vague that
And that
anybody
ninth
can
one
do
is vague. Yes.
anything they want with it. They can turn that vague into trendy ideology. You know,
And again, I mean, we'll have we'll have to see how it plays out.
I
But
don't want to see how
but
it plays out.
this, but him talking about trendy ideologies, what is this in reference to? Is this?
The,
I mean, this is just a quote by him. It's not
right,
legislative action.
we saw his legislative action, and I think this is telling us where he wants it to go. He, it is vague, and what does he want out of it? He wants it to stop teaching certain things in colleges.
Well, look, we'll see how it goes. It's fair if that's where he wants it to go. Fine.
And that's
The
not fine.
legislation's
That's
been
bad.
passed.
Okay.
No, listen, the legislation's been passed. The way it works is that the legislation gets passed, the executive signs it, and then it has to be enforced.
Hmm.
And the judiciary is the one that's responsible for enforcing it. So not only do you have to have DeSantis wanting it to play out that way, but you have to have the judiciary that enforces it in that way. And I don't think they will. So,
Hmm. So we have to drink the bleach before we find out if it's dangerous. I'm. This
well, we have to pass the
seems.
bill to find out what's in it.
Eh, no. We have to
Oh, you
find
don't
out
like
how
that quote?
it's a
Come on.
dumbass quote. I know what it is. Nancy said it because she's stupid, and yeah, Nancy said it and she's dumb. It was a shitty way to explain it, and she's stupid for saying it. Um, no, sometimes you can see a problem before it happens, and I won't.
Potential problem.
I think this is poisonous, and I don't think we should drink it. I don't think we should go down this path because it's dangerous and terrible. And we have to go down the dangerous and terrible path before we know it's dangerous and terrible. Well, sometimes you can tell that it's dangerous and terrible.
We'll see.
I've never
I mean,
drank
I've mentioned it
bleach,
before. I
but I
think that you're very doom and gloom on this.
yes, because it is a doom and gloom thing. I'm looking at it and it looks doom and gloom, so I'm telling you, hey, this is doom and gloom, and you're like, nah, it's not doom and gloom yet. Uh,
And it probably won't be, is what I'm saying. I
I
mean,
think
I don't think it will be.
okay, you don't think it will be doom and gloom. All right, I'm worried that it will be. Um, I just like this headline because I think it's funny. Republicans want 12 randos to decide if your emergency abortion is legal.
We're the randos.
That's it's a funny wording, but it's the people on the jury,
All right.
and that
The
counts as 12 randos, right? A jury
I
of your peers.
I guess technically speaking, it does actually. Yeah.
I just like the headline. I know that it's being unfair that the 12 randos are actually a jury of your peers, which is how most things are decided. But it's I think it's funny.
Well, I mean, I haven't even seen what this is all about.
uh, I know.
Like I said, I spent the week on healthcare. So,
And this will kind of lead into that maybe. Their proposed abortion ban could let a jury decide if the emergency abortion was really necessary. So if a woman goes to the doctor, has an emergency abortion, that has to go through a trial and a jury to decide whether or not it was necessary. And if it wasn't necessary, I would assume you get legal uh, consequences and punishment. And again, somewhat similar to the college thing. This isn't. I don't think this will ever make it to a court. I think the doctors will just quit doing it because they don't want to go to court. Similar,
Wait, is this in the third trimester?
probably. Doctors who want to perform an emergency abortion without risking legal penalties will have to win over 12 people who
No, the
likely answer.
paragraph below that is what I
Okay.
was just looking at.
Banned in Virginia at the start of the third trimester. At the start of the third trimester, except when it's necessary to prevent the patient's health or life. The proposed bill would not only narrow the window of the time when people can get abortions, but also permit abortions after a certain point of cases of rape or incest, and if the patient's life is in danger, facing a serious risk of substantial, irreversible impairment of major bodily function. So
Okay, so
the
that it's
doctor.
before the third trimester. Fuck, trimester.
Hmm.
Trimester. Before the third trimester, uh, that they're trying to restrict it to, and after a certain period of time, I think I saw above 15 weeks. Is that what it said?
Hmm.
That you have to have a case for it,
Hmm.
like it's rape or incest or something like
Hmm.
that.
Or patient's life. So this is a doctor making a decision that is being hampered by the government. A thing that conservatives have been yelling at me about when socialized medicine comes up that they don't like, but they like it
Yeah,
here.
imagine that. The government steps in and fucks things up again.
Right. So why are conservatives pushing this bill if it causes the government to get in between a patient and the doctor?
Because conservatives believe that life begins at conception.
Okay.
I mean, we already had this conversation. Like,
So so the idea that I'm going to point you toward is that state by state laws on this is a dumbass way to do things. Having Virginia have one set of rules and Maryland, right next door, have a different set of rules is a dumbass thing to do.
why?
Why? Because they're inches away from each other.
So
And so what do you mean so? There
I
should
said
be
so.
there should be one large rule that everybody in the country can follow. We used to have that until what I'm calling a activist judges on the Supreme Court shot it down. We had rules in place. We had understandings in place. They shot that down. Now it's chaos. Now it's every state for themselves. And that is nonsense. It's a shit way to organize things. It's not organization. It's in fact chaos and
Oh,
disorganization.
what you're arguing for is nationalization of certain policies,
Right, because it makes
which I actually
sense.
disagree with. I don't
Okay.
think it makes sense.
How does it?
Um, what is good for Colorado may not be good for Alabama, right? Uh,
Within certain
and
rules?
what
Sure.
those people want is also going to be different. Are the states in the United States of America? Some of them are larger than many other countries.
Hmm.
Um, it's the idea that state sovereignty is something that we should not, or something that we should forego, doesn't make sense to me.
I think you're going too far with it. If the states want to have a different sales tax, I don't mind that. If they want to have different gun laws, honestly, I don't mind that. They should be different in Manhattan than they are in Montana. I understand the idea that you need different gun laws in Manhattan than you do in Montana. That makes sense. But this, no. This should be the same everywhere you go.
There's a little bit of creep that happens as the federal government continues to take more and more power.
Hmm.
Um, there is no point at which it rescinds that power. Or if it does, it happens very infrequently. And this would be another step towards what you're suggesting would be another step towards the federal government consolidating more power. And I don't like that.
That's not power. That's rules. That's guidelines.
No, the
Telling,
ability for the federal government to make those rules and guidelines is the power.
I recognize that you have to have power to create rules and implement guidelines and enforce them. That requires power. I understand the idea.
Right.
But,
And the demonstration of that power is the enforcement and implementation of those rules in the first place.
okay,
When we let them do that, that is what gives the power.
okay. So you're worried that the federal government will have too much power, but you're accepting of Virginia putting women on trial and a doctor on trial.
Virginia is Virginia. Virginia does
Virginia
what
is
Virginia
Virginia.
wants.
Virginia is full of people, and those
Yes,
people are
Virginia
going to
is full of
be
Virginians.
right, and those people are going to be harmed by a minorities, a minority of political activists' decisions. What do they do at that point? They
Leave.
have to leave. They're poor. They can't leave. This is where their job is. This is where their kids are. This is where the house is. They bought a house. They've got a 30-year mortgage. You can't just leave. You have to have someone to appeal to, and that would be the federal government. If the state passes a law that is clearly unconstitutional, it should be tried on the federal level, right?
A state has a law that is unconstitutional. It should be tried at the federal level. Yes.
Okay.
But that has to be. But you're assuming that this bill is unconstitutional in the first
It
place.
wasn't. I mean, yeah,
And
wait, no, wait. It isn't anymore,
and
but it would have
any
been last
bill,
year.
any bill can actually be contested as unconstitutional. It's a matter of whether the courts
Right.
determine that it is or isn't.
Right. I agree.
And maybe
Yeah.
they will, because I'm sure that this is being litigated,
Yeah.
and the courts will decide whether or
Why?
not this is
I'm gonna.
constitutional or not. And again,
Mhm.
this will be our legal system working in the way that it's intended.
Mm,
So
this
this
didn't.
is
This was a settled problem until activist judges ticked up Roe versus Wade last year. This bill wouldn't have been passed. This litigation wouldn't have happened, and it
no, no,
wouldn't
no,
have
no.
gone all the
Roe
way up.
versus Wade was passed by activist judges.
It was.
It was rescinded by constitutionalist judges, first of all.
I
And
disagree completely.
even Ruth Bader Ginsburg said that Roe versus Wade was improperly decided.
I know because the conservatives wouldn't let it pass properly. The we covered that last week, but um, I am under the impression that the people who destroyed or threw out Roe versus Wade when it was a 50-year-old law, that seems
Wasn't a
exceptional
law.
to me. Or 50-year-old what is it?
Ruling.
Ruling.
And that there it is.
And that ruling
See, I told you about
dictates
legislating
law.
from the bench before.
That ruling dictates what the laws are.
And now you agree that Roe v. Wade was legislation from the bench.
It was legislation from the bench? No, it was
Uh-huh.
a ruling
That you
on
just called it a
legislation.
law, dude.
I just
You
called
just
it a
called
law.
it a law.
Okay, so that makes it legislation from the bench?
Yes, that when you think of
They
it
make
as
decisions on
legislation,
laws.
it's legislating from the bench.
They make decisions on laws.
Yes, but they don't create laws, or they're not supposed to.
And they didn't create it.
Roe v. Wade was one of those instances where they essentially created a law. Yes.
No, they had two sides and they met in the middle. They invented that trimester. You said trimester a bunch of times. That was created with Roe v. Wade, right? So this creation of a middle of the
Said trimester in regards to that one paragraph that I saw down there
right and
about where
where
the
did that
trimester is at.
that word came from? The Roe v. Wade explanation, and it split it up into trimesters. It was easy to get in the first trimester. It's medium difficulty to get abortions in the middle, and it's very difficult to get them in the late, in that third trimester. And that created a framework that states could now pass laws. But that framework has been exploded. That framework has been removed. And now without framework, we have chaos. We have random states doing random ass things.
Yes, and that is going to happen.
That's not a
When
good
you
idea. That's bad. I like structure. Don't.
things are going to have to normalize at some like the states are going to have to do what the
It,
states are going to do,
it was
and at some
normalized.
point, well, it wasn't normalized properly.
It was.
If you wanted, look, if you as I have continued to repeat, if they wanted the ruling from Roe v. Wade to be enshrined into federal law,
Mhm.
then a federal legislature should have passed it.
And then it would just get. It would continue to get challenged in a court.
And eventually, a court will decide if the legislature passing this bill is constitutional or not.
And they did that with Roe v. Wade.
No, there
They
was
said it was
no bill that
constitutional.
There was no bill that Roe v. Wade was deciding on. Roe v. Wade was deciding on an individual's right to privacy
Right.
in an abortion.
And they
There
decided
was
that
no
was
bill that
constitutional.
was being decided on. If the legislature had passed a bill saying abortion is legal up to this point by federal law, and no states can contest that, then that is when it would be decided by the courts if it was legal for them to pass that law. But Roe v. Wade was not enshrined into law at any point. Roe v. Wade was a decision that was made on the basis of individual privacy.
Mhm.
And look, if you wanted abortion rights enshrined into federal law, it should have been passed by a legislature. Straight up, that's the end of the argument right there. I mean, why didn't they do it?
I don't know
There you
because
go.
they're wieners, and Democrats are wimps. If they had balls, they would have. But if they had balls, they wouldn't be Democrats anymore. Uh,
Yeah, they'd be Republicans.
they'd
No,
be
I'm just kidding.
they'd be leftists. I got you.
They'd be
No, they'd be
Trumples.
Trumples. Yeah, it'd be great. If the Democrats had balls, they wouldn't be Democrats. It's a very weird situation we're stuck in. But that causes, I mean, even that causes more instability. You are making good points about Roe v. Wade. It wasn't based on law. Okay. But it was a decision made by the court that could be applied to all of the decisions in that situation. And they thought that there was a constitutional right for privacy, and I can get behind that. I think that's fine. Um, I don't think that them blowing it up 50 years after it happened and dumping it is conservative. I mean, it is in one of the definitions of the word.
What I think what you're looking for, the word you're looking for is to have done that is volatile.
Yeah, it is. It's volatile. I agree. Yeah, that's what I'm. That's the point I'm trying to make. You're right. You've said it well. Um,
Yes, there is going to be some volatility when major decisions are made. That does happen. Yes.
especially if you're flopping backward a decision that was made 50 years ago. It causes volatility. It's causing this confusion within these states, and I don't trust state lawmakers to do it right.
I don't think that we should refrain from making decisions that will cause volatility if those decisions are correct. So the fact that they will cause volatility in the end is not something that I think. I mean, it is factored into the decision to make those choices, but I don't think that the volatility of the decision is something that is a deciding factor.
Okay. I agree with that sentence. We just disagree on what's correct and what's not.
As we always do.
Mm-hmm. All right. That was pretty much all of the new things. So what I will do is, do you have any links you want to send me for the healthcare debate since we're on the subject anyway, sort of?
I do have some articles. They're quite long, and I've read them, so I will send them to you, and
Mm-hmm.
then of course you can just, I guess you could have the understanding that um, I'm getting a lot of my information from these few articles,
That's fine.
or the information I'm citing at least.
Okay. Um, yeah, go ahead. Link them to me. We'll load them up in my browser, and we can look at them whenever you need.
But, let's see, another one. A couple of them are from Forbes. You'll probably have to unless you haven't seen any of their articles yet, you might have to turn no script on in order to beat the paywall.
Mm.
And I've got just the free op one. The I think I have at least one more. I don't think I do actually. I had a history one. Hold on. It's sort of what I wanted to talk on. Yes, the history stuff is stuff that is pretty easily uh, verified anyway. Oh, they just want you to enable ads. Look at that.
Yeah.
Go.
Okay, got that one.
Wow,
God,
that
so
looks
many.
horrible with all those ads. Oh my god.
I
Bro, you gotta get uBlock Origin, man.
swear. Yeah. It does look bad. I don't even know what that is. I just never go to websites except for this, and I don't want to go to Twitter because it's horrible and not helpful at all. Um, and I don't want to be a part of Twitter, you know. But honestly, it's the only fucking place to get news anymore. Loading up some more things. Here we go. Very nice. Okay. Um, Cato. Gross. Okay.
Old Kato. Give me 2 minutes before we start this one.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah,
use
that's
the
fine.
bathroom.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm still loading
Be right
stuff
back.
up. Um, and I'll talk to anybody watching. Hi, my name's Waldo. Usually, I'm a leftist. And I've been talking to Modular for years and years and years about this stuff. And when we argue on uh, through Discord and stuff like that, and then uh, I've recently been able to have had the time, the ability to start a YouTube channel. So that's what I did. I still barely know what I'm doing. I'm not an editor. I'm not a very good YouTuber. Never done anything like that before. I've only recently been learning how to create the videos themselves and how to edit them and stuff like that. So it's a bit of a mess, but I'm doing my best. And gosh, he's got a lot of links. What is this? This one. Oh, we got that one. And so I'm loading up all his links, and we're gonna discuss it and come up with some plans. And a lot of times we get down into like the definitional differences, like even the words themselves. We don't even agree on what the words mean. So I've got all of his stuff loaded, and we're gonna swap back to see main screen, and bring up my thing here. And so if you're listening and you like it and having a good time, jump into chat. We usually stream every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And then I will chop up the chop up the discussions into videos, put those on the site. Watch the videos. It's what you're getting here in the live stream, and give us a like and a thumbs up, and then a subscribe. Because I am at a whopping 5, I think, subscribers. Amazing.
Congratulations on hitting the big number
The
5.
big number 5. I got 5 subscribers. It
Here we
is
go.
important. All right, I have all of your links up here.
All right.
They are on the screen, and I would begin. Do you want to begin, or do you want me to begin? Because I have an opening.
Ooh, let's hear it.
An opening, and it isn't
I
made
have
by
one
me.
too.
It is Donald Trump suggesting that we should have socialized medicine because he knows it's good. All right, I'm going to start back
You know, I
here.
have such great access to medical. It's good to be president, I guess.
It seems like Donald Trump made a really good case for universal health care the other day.
It's a lot easier for me than somebody that's, doesn't have access to a doctor so easily, where it's a big deal to see a doctor.
You sure did, Ali.
The doctors at Walter
And I
Reed were
can't hear
incredible.
Last
what
weekend at
you're
Walter
playing,
You
but I
can't
can
hear.
read
President
the
Trump received the
subtitles.
highest degree of health care in the world, and it was on the
I
taxpayer's
might have to
dime.
turn.
This is an incredible hospital.
Nope, that doesn't
Walter
help.
Reed.
According to the New York Times, the treatment that the president received would have cost the average American at least $100,000 in medical expenses. That estimate is on the low side.
I'll be the doctor here, and I promise you no copay.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good to me, Mark.
Senator, good to see you. You tweeted, Mr. Trump, guess what? The Walter Reed Hospital you were at, where you claimed you got excellent, high-quality care, that is a 100% government-funded, government-run, dare I say, socialist facility.
What they're doing is socialized medicine, and it's not acceptable.
You and I know, Senator Sanders, where I come from in Canada, everybody gets the same health care and everybody pays the same for it. That's not the case in America.
They want to go socialized medicine. Socialized medicine.
What Trump's illness and treatment tell us is that healthcare is a human right. It's not a job benefit. Everybody, rich,
You're not going to be
poor, young,
DMCA'd
old,
for this,
is
are you?
entitled
Or
to
not?
I don't
healthcare,
think
or
so.
Medicare,
I mean, this
for
is-
all,
this is only
single-payer
Bernie
program,
Sanders
and that idea
his
is
thing.
gaining more and more momentum
Oh, okay.
every day.
I don't think they'd complain. And that
Okay.
is my basic. That's the opening. Even Donald Trump wants and appreciates universal health care. When he gets it, he loves it. He talks about how great it is. I
Well-
just want everybody to have it, and it is
So
a human
what
right,
is your-
and that's my opening.
What is your conception of universal health care?
It
Like, are we
would-
talking like a single payer program?
Yes, I would push for a single payer in which the government, rather than private insurers, pays for all healthcare costs.
I sent you the free op link.
Mhm.
And there's a world index of healthcare innovation here where they talk about quality of healthcare, of how much choice people have in finding healthcare providers, in science and technology, where the United States actually leads in essentially medical innovation or new products. And then there's fiscal sustainability. You can see there's 6 countries that are in the green here. The United States is mostly buoyed by that science and technology rating. But what do you think of the fact that the 5 countries above that don't use a single payer system?
What system are they using?
So essentially, and I'm actually going to go across party lines here, they're using a more robust version of the Affordable Care Act. What they're doing here is Switzerland is the main one. Switzerland all of their healthcare is privatized. I don't think they even have a public option. But they do have an individual mandate, which is very contentious in the United States.
Right.
And what they're doing there is everybody has to have health care, and they
It's forced by law.
provide
that they
subsidies.
buy. Okay.
Yep, everybody, and they have subsidies for people that can't afford that insurance. So their people have the ability to choose their insurance plan so long as they have one. And the people that can't afford an insurance plan get subsidies for that.
Mm-hmm.
All of these
Good.
countries, all of these countries that are above the United States in this index of healthcare innovation run on a similar plan. None of them are on a single payer, I don't think.
Okay. And if they transitioned to a single payer, I think those numbers would only go up.
Well, there are single payer systems that are on this list here.
But not in these
like
countries.
number 10, the United Kingdom.
Right, but not in this country.
Why do you think they would go up for those countries?
Because
if they switch to single payer compared to what is already doing amazing for them.
Because these profits would in fact be pointed back towards the patients and the people instead of lining the insurance CEO's pocket.
Well, first of all, insurance CEOs insurance companies for health are already capped in the United States. The amount that an insurance company can make, the profit margins are at 5% for a for-profit company. 5%.
And that's what you're saying, the 6.7 billion is only 5%?
Hold on. The profit margins for for-profit companies in the United States health insurance industry is 5%. The CEOs of and all health insurance industries actually have a capped amount that they're allowed to spend on administration, including salaries.
Mm-hmm.
That is capped at 20% of revenue from premiums. The other 80% has to go to paying for healthcare, and that 80%, if it's not all used, has to be rebated to the purchasers of those premium of the payers of those premiums.
Then how are they still making this much money?
Because the industry is a lot of money, I guess, or maybe those numbers are misleading or wrong.
Okay, and then why are hospitals running in the red? Because they're not getting enough from the insurers. Aren't hospitals like collapsing and failing because they can't make enough money? Isn't that an issue we're having right now, that the rural hospitals are failing?
Is it?
Yeah.
You have a link for that?
I thought so. I read it somewhere. But I'm coming down hard and saying specifically that for-profit health insurance is morally incorrect. It is morally wrong. It's bad. It's awful.
Well,
it ought to be avoided at all costs.
Okay. Well, 63% of the what is it?
I've got your
63% of the U.S. health insurers with more than 100,000 enrollees are nonprofits.
Good. Make all of them nonprofit. And then we can abandon the idea that it was for profit at all. The fact that it could be for profit is harmful to people, and it leads to human suffering. The entire endeavor should be nonprofit. This profit margin right here, I've lost the damn link again. This profit right here of $6.7 billion is
Hey, we're talking about $6.7 billion in a $1 trillion industry.
Mm-hmm. Disgusting.
That's a drop in the bucket.
It ought to be zero. That drop is too big. That drop in that bucket is too big, and it ought to be zero. That's exactly what I'm telling you. I'm not being.
Your plan for this is for more government intervention.
My plan
to fix
for
this problem
is for the government to pay the doctors in the hospitals. That's all.
Your plan is to pay the doctors in the hospitals.
Yes, rather than the private insurance, pays for the healthcare costs. The
Oh,
single payer
I
healthcare is
see
a
what you're
system
saying.
in
So
which
you're
the
saying
government,
that you want
rather
the
than private
government
insurance,
to
rather than
make
private
those payments.
insurance, yes.
But the insurers are not the ones making the profits here. It is the hospitals, actually. There
No,
are
it's the insurance company.
maybe you might be right. What?
It's the insurance company that's making the profit. The
No.
hospitals are being gouged by these insurance people not paying them well enough. I'm going to look up that.
Quite the opposite, actually. And you're right that maybe rural hospitals, the ones that don't have pricing power, are struggling. That's entirely possible. However, there are name brand hospitals, major ones in major cities and locales that do have pricing power, and they are able to absolutely gouge the insurance companies because the insurance companies don't have the option to reject or to exclude them from their list of providers that they insure.
Right, and that is part of the overcomplication that insurance creates. It's overly complicated with ins- buying insurance, and then they can't afford it, but then they have to get a rebate, but then they have to get a government subsidy for certain people, and then those subsidies go to some people that are means tested, and the companies
Well,
have
the
these
problem is, hold
hospitals
on,
that they don't pay. It's overly complicated
most of the
by
problem is
the profit
because
motive.
these companies, there is a sort of group of like must-have hospitals that they have to deal with. And those are the ones with all the pricing power. Whereas if you have an individual buying their health insurance, they might be okay with not going to, like, the John Hopkins, hospital, and that wouldn't be covered by them. But they could go to this other local hospital that's just fine, right? But if you are not able to choose your plan, then you might be forced to pay the premiums for a plan that does offer that hospital as a potential as a provider, right? Which is going to increase your premiums. Now, how did we get to this point?
Profit
Is
motive.
sort of
That's how we got here.
no
Profit motive.
no. We actually got here because the government, in an attempt to do something that, of course, with the best of intentions, managed to fuck things up again. And that was in 1942.
Uh-huh.
So we had World War II going on. The United States was entering World War II. And the government passed the Stabilization Act. And what the Stabilization Act did was cap wages. So we had a shortage of labor because we had all the men in the Army or the Marines or the Air Force or whatever serving in the military instead of working in the factories and in their, service jobs and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that labor shortage, of course, labor is a commodity which is affected by supply and demand.
Mm-hmm.
Because the supply of labor went down so much, what happened was the value of that labor went up substantially, and it continued to go up, and people were making more and more money in terms of wages, which I think you would agree is a good thing.
That's usually a good thing, yes.
The administration did not want that wage increase to spiral out of control, because, of course, firms, when labor is in short supply, have to compete for labor.
Mm-hmm.
And in which case they're going to offer more money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Until such time as, in a perfect environment, what will happen is that labor becomes more and more expensive until the profit margin on whatever it is that they're producing is as slim as possible.
Mm-hmm.
The administration didn't want any didn't want the wage inflation to increase. So what they did was they passed the Stabilization Act, which capped the amount that wages could increase, or that firms could increase wages.
Okay. Probably a
So
bad
these
idea,
companies,
but go on.
well,
I
it was
don't love
passed
the
by a
idea.
Democrat.
I know.
Uh,
And I don't love
so
the idea.
they
If
capped
Democrats had
the
balls, they wouldn't be Democrats. Okay.
they capped the wages, and so in capping the wages, firms found other ways to compensate employees and to attract them to their businesses.
And that is now.
And
Hold on
one of
one
those
moment.
ways
Okay. Is offering them health insurance.
was offering health insurance. Yes.
Okay, great. So why would a company offer that? Why would they do that? Because the
Well,
labor is worth it. And if the labor is worth it, they make a profit. This all stems from profit motive. This isn't the government fucking up. This is the government attempting to save somebody's profits. This is they didn't pass that wage cap for the good of the people. They
hold on.
passed it so
They
some
passed that
company
wage cap
could make profit.
because they were afraid of having an inflation spiral, which is what happened in Germany after the First World War. That is the stated reason, at the very least. You
Okay.
can assume that it was for the purpose of preserving profits, but
I always assume that.
well, sure, but the stated reason is to prevent an inflation spiral, the likes that Germany saw after World War One.
Okay.
So they passed the Stabilization Act, and firms had to find a way to compensate employees that didn't involve increasing their wages because they weren't allowed to anymore.
Okay.
And one of those ways was to provide health insurance for them.
Mm-hmm. Give them something that isn't money. Okay.
Exactly. Give them something that isn't money. And so a whole bunch of firms started doing this, providing this health insurance.
Huge mistake, but okay.
Health insurance, yeah, huge mistake. But the end result was that when all these firms were doing this after the war ended, the government and actually labor unions decided that they really liked having employer sponsored health insurance, and so they made the push to enshrine it into law, and they did.
Okay.
And so since the 1950s, we've had the employer sponsored healthcare tax exclusion,
Okay.
which is essentially the basis of our entire problem with the American healthcare system. It all stems from literally one government fuck up followed by one more. And now we're in the situation we're in because the government continues to fuck up.
Trying to fix the profit motive. You
They're-
just described it to
look,
me, and
they're-
that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing
They're
profits
great. Look,
being
they
the
can
most
have the
important
greatest of intentions, but it is the government in all of these scenarios that manages to fuck something up, passing laws with the best of intentions every time.
thing. And that's what they will always do. That is what a government will always do. Is
But
try
you're
to
suggesting more intervention.
pass. No, I'm suggesting abandoning the entire for-profit health insurance industry. The entire
That will
industry
never-
needs to dry up and go away. It needs to be undercut by the government so that it can wither and die and everyone can abandon it and we can have something better. Because you are saying that the government fucked this up, but the government fucked it up in an attempt to make somebody profit. It is the profit motive that is causing these problems. You said the government fucked up, and I agree the government fucked up. But the reason they fucked up is because profit motive exists. The reason they fucked up, you're saying it all lays back to the government fucking up, but I think the government fucked up because they're trying to control profits and help these people either get profits or stop other people from getting profits. And then the company found a way around. uh, by offering the insurance to these employees instead of money. They're working around the government for profit motive. And why
Working
does
around the government to attract labor.
right so
Like
that
you
they
have,
can make a
as a
profit?
company, you have to have people working for you in order to make your product, right?
Hmm.
Well,
And it was worth it to them to offer this service so that they could, in fact, get the labor instead of the other guy. And if you're getting it
yes,
instead of your other guy, that's competition. I dig it. But it's also so that why do you compete? Why do two companies compete? So they can make a profit. Why do they offer this thing to the
yes,
workers?
in the
So
end,
that they
but
can make
they have to
profit.
be able to make their product first to make the profit. That's why you compete for labor. When you
Yes.
look at everything as a sort of a commodity, that's what happens. Is yes, the end goal is to have a profit for your company or make a product or a profit on your product and whatnot.
Hmm.
But everything has to fall into place first in order to do that. And so like I really don't understand what your argument is here. If you want to eliminate the profit motive, and the profit motive is what caused people to hire employees, would the alternative be you eliminate the profit motive, therefore nobody gets hired?
Not within that company, within healthcare, within the government putting a cap on labor, I think is a dumb idea. Putting a cap on the salary is a dumb idea. It didn't work. It failed. Let's not do that again. We see that the company just goes around it by offering them intangible, non-monetary things. You didn't solve a problem. You created one. Great. Why did they create that? Because they were worried about economics. Economics, profit motive. It all comes back to money. Everything in this country comes back to money every single time. Every time you go
I think in the
backwards.
world always comes back to
I
money.
know, and we
Like,
ought to
look,
uh,
it's not going to happen. Everything is always
change
going to come
some of
back to
those
money.
motives.
And if it doesn't come back to money, it'll come back to production. And
Okay, which
money
is just money.
money is literally just a representation of production.
Great.
So, regardless of what system you use,
It comes
yeah, you
back
can
to money,
demonize
sure.
money. It comes back to either money
Well,
or what money represents.
I'm not trying to demonize money. I'm trying to demonize the cutthroat profit motive at all costs. Now, I think that's what we are looking at when I look at the chart of uh, insurers' profits. How, okay, hypothetical, real quick. How does this company get money? Where does the money come in?
Insurance premiums.
It's customers. They pay. Now, that company, being a health insurance company, uh, has workers, has administrative costs, sure, but the bulk of what they're supposed to be doing is giving that money out to people who are sick. And
And
how,
the bulk of what they are doing is doing that, yes.
okay, the bulk of what they're doing is doing that. Why does this company even exist? We could have the government do that. Take in money through taxes, give it out to the sick. And they wouldn't then have a profit motive. They wouldn't then try to turn this 3.4 into 3.5 or 3.6 or 3.7%.
Well, that company exists because they were able to provide better offerings than the nonprofits that they originally would have had to compete with, and which they still compete with. That company exists because they think they can turn a profit.
Okay. They
They,
exist because they think they can turn a profit. Right.
yeah,
I think that is
and healthcare is a very lucrative
fine.
industry right now.
And I think that is fine if they're making skateboards, if they're producing music, if they're making cool t-shirts with Mario's face on it. I agree that the company that makes the best and cheapest t-shirt with Mario's face on it should make profit. But not if they're selling medicine to people who are going to die without it. That is entirely unacceptable in my mind. I know it's not the way things are, but I'm not discussing what is. I'm discussing what ought to be, and what ought to be is that healthcare is a right that you get when you go to the doctor and it comes out through your taxes, and the tax money that you're paying goes towards paying the other people that are sick right now when you're not. Because that's what the healthcare company is doing, except they're skimming and they're taking some of it for themselves. It's the
Well,
exact same situation. It's the exact same system, except my system wouldn't have the United Health Group skimming 6.7 billion off the top.
well, the only reason they're able to do that is because of the employer tax exclusion, the employer-sponsored healthcare tax exclusion.
Employer, yes, the one we mentioned a moment ago, right?
Yeah, literally the whole problem is that most Americans that have healthcare are getting it through their employers. And the employers are offering these things, and when the employers offer these healthcare plans, the employers are expecting certain things from the insurance, which means that certain providers have to be available.
Right, and then it gets complicated. Certain
And
providers have to be
then you
available,
had
so
the article up a
co-pays.
minute ago. It's the Forbes article, that one, and you had it where must-have hospitals possess pricing power, and they specifically
That goes
possess
away
pricing power
under my
because
system,
of
doesn't
the. It does, except for the fact that single payer is not the most efficient system, and it's not among any of the top 5 or the top 9 systems in the country according to FreeUp, or not in the country, in the world according to FreeUp. The first one is the United Kingdom with a single payer system at number 10. And it has worse metrics across the board than the United States does. Except
But
for, well, let's see. Yeah, except for choice. It's 2 points better than the United States in choice.
and I'm suggesting that if the United States went to a single payer, it would go up. If Switzerland went to a single payer, it would also go up in all these numbers.
On what
That is what I'm
basis?
By the fact that these companies aren't taking this cut. They're not skimming anymore.
You're saying that that it goes up in countries that. So you're saying that countries that are already doing better than all the other single payer countries
Could be doing better, yes.
could be doing better by going single payer.
Yes.
And I don't see any evidence for that at all.
Because it hasn't been done in that country? I don't know. Maybe. If Switzerland went single payer in the 80s and it was down here, and then they went with the more market-based, and then it got up here, I might be changing my mind, but I still think it is morally incorrect and bad for a company to be making that much. Where did my damn...
Okay, so your problem is not with the actual quality of our health insurance. Your problem is with the morality
Yes,
of turning a profit on it.
yes, turning a profit on medicine is acceptable. Hey, I made a pill that causes this person to get healthy. I would like to be paid for it and make a profit. I'm okay with that. But the health insurance itself shouldn't be for profit. The fact that these for-profit companies exist makes me crazy. I think that this can be done without them making a profit. This is 6.7
You're making
billion.
an argument that is not even necessary.
Was it not necessary? The health insurers are huge and very profitable, and they lobby and they control politicians. They tell the politicians what to do.
They are huge, and they are somewhat profitable. I mean, 6.7 billion. If your revenues of profit, if your revenues are 600 billion, is 1%.
Great. That 1% could have been
Right.
spent
I mean,
curing somebody's cancer. That 1% could have been given to a person, an American.
yeah. Go back to that free op real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see where it says science and technology, and we are far and away the leaders in that?
Mm-hmm.
That's where that money goes. Because the money doesn't just sit and stagnate. It gets reinvested in ways. So it could be reinvested in the form of contributions. It can be reinvested in the form of shareholder returns. If those are for-profit companies, then their shareholders will get returns, and those shareholders do things with money. Then what happens is eventually that money makes its way to the innovation of healthcare products. And that's why we have the greatest innovation of any country in the science and technology field.
Mm-hmm.
We create all of the best stuff. We have all the vaccines. We have all of the pills. All of pharmaceuticals are developed here because of the profit motive. The
Right.
profit motive here is stronger than anywhere else, and you want to trade that away? We can look at the innovation of the United Kingdom as our baseline.
I'm not trading it away in the creation of the medicine. I think medicine, devices, the actual surgery techniques and the devices they use and the equipment they use is separate from insurance. Insurance is nothing. The insurance company takes money and then gives some of it out. That's how they make a profit. They give out less than they take in. As simply as I can put that, the insurance company makes a profit by giving out less than they take in.
Okay, so.
And I think the insurance companies are what ought to be done away with, not the drug manufacturers, not the surgeons, not the people creating new technology. Those people can stay. It's the insurance that I have an issue with.
All those people are incentivized by the profit motive,
right,
that they can achieve.
It shows right here in this, yeah.
But those are not the insurers.
This is World Index of Healthcare Innovation, 2021.
Yes.
Okay.
No. What I'm saying is that science technology score
is
comes
high
from those surgeons, those manufacturers, those pharmaceutical companies.
It comes from this fiscal sustainability. It comes from this low score. We have traded one stat for another stat. We have lowered this stat to raise this one. The 34 is bad and the worst on this little list right here because it is too expensive in America. And what we get from being too expensive is this number, the 73.
Yes, and suppose we were able to raise the fiscal responsibility score.
They would have to take it
without impacting science and technology as much. So if you take a look at the next leader in science and technology, Switzerland, who is number 1 on this list, they have the highest quality, the highest choice, the highest fiscal sustainability,
mm-hmm.
and they don't have single-payer healthcare.
What do they have?
They do have universal healthcare, but it's not provided by the government. They have a mandate
mm-hmm.
that says everybody has to purchase their own healthcare,
mm-hmm.
which means that they have second-order healthcare. It means that individuals in their country make the choice to purchase whichever healthcare plan they so choose.
Okay. And they pay a company for that.
And they pay a company for that insurance. And if they can't afford the premiums, the Swiss government subsidizes it.
Okay, so why do we have to go? Why do we have to go through so many steps? But they have the choice.
What?
Why do they have to go through so many steps? We could simplify the problem. We could streamline the process, and more of the money would go towards the people instead of the healthcare company.
Competition is good for markets. Because when you do a single-payer system, you eliminate the competition in the payer side of the equation.
In the health insurance side,
that's a bad thing.
That's great because health insurance is a scam.
No. You always want to have some amount of competition. That you have multiple companies fighting with each other for profit.
That's fine with the drugs. That's fine with the devices. That's fine with the hospitals. But I don't think it's fine with the health insurance. I don't want a company to profit from taking money and then giving some of it out. I mean, that's as basic as I can get.
Well, first of all, hold on. First of all, as we discussed before, the private sector is almost always more efficient than the public is.
Because
And
they have a higher
considering the
profit
amount,
motive to worry about.
considering the propensity of our government to continue to fuck things up, and seeing how slow the government is to actually get anything done, even when it comes to the programs the government runs, I don't want them running our healthcare single-handedly. That sounds like a bad idea because the government sucks at running things.
Generally, and I'm going to say it again, because private companies get in the way and dick it up. There are I mean, I know I'm changing the subject slightly, but TurboTax and H&R Block have lobbyists that get in the way of a very simple tax plan. And I'm suggesting to you that these health insurance companies, like the ones I showed with the giant billions of profits, are hiring lobbyists to make government worse. They're intentionally getting in the way of government, making it worse, making them pass half-ass plans, making them pass plans that only don't really work, and they already have a workaround to, so that they can continue making profit.
And
Okay,
I
sorry.
get that. What I'm telling you is that there is a very simple solution to the problem of expensive healthcare in the United States, and that is to end the employer-sponsored healthcare exclusion for taxes.
Okay, so what
This will
would that
reintroduce
cause?
competition for plans,
Mm-hmm.
and it will reduce the pricing power of the major hospitals in the United States. That brings down prices. There is actually a second way as well. We passed, and I don't have the date on this, but there was a law that was passed several decades ago now, which mandated that institutions cannot charge people differently based on whether or not they have insurance.
Right.
And we should probably get rid of that too.
It's a very complicated mess right now. And even your solution would cause some people to lose money. It would cause some people to lose health insurance entirely. It would cause some people to not have coverage anymore. And it would cause some other people to make a profit. It is a large, complicated mess. And once you're in the large, complicated mess, the government tries to fix a problem, but that causes a problem for a different person, or it causes a unexpected solution. The mess needs to
Well,
go
again,
away.
this wasn't a problem to begin with until the government stepped in
It was a
with
problem.
wage controls.
It was people not being able to afford a doctor. That was a problem before the 1940s, I promise.
Oh, doctors were affordable back then, though. Until they
couldn't-
were affordable,
They were
and in
affordable.
fact, doctors would come to you,
Right.
and until the Great Depression hit, people were just fine affording doctors.
I
Now
have
the
no
Great
doubt there were
Depression
people
hit,
who couldn't afford a
and
doctor.
the Great Depression hit, and people suddenly were, not so well off, and that was actually the origin of the Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Who are, again,
Which
an insurance
was
company.
a
Who turn a profit.
non-profit insurance company, and their offer was, hey, if you pay us a flat fee, then if you have a health crisis of some kind, we will pay for it. We'll pay for your medical costs, and rather than taking the risk of having a medical emergency during the Great Depression, people went for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, World War II with the Stabilization Act turned employer-sponsored healthcare into a thing, and then that employer-sponsored healthcare got enshrined in a tax code. And now, so here's part of the problem,
Mm-hmm.
is that right now employers can offer you a family plan,
Mm-hmm.
for example, which is worth $23,000 on average,
Okay.
with no tax cost to you or the employer. You don't pay income tax on that health plan, and you don't pay payroll taxes on that health plan,
Okay.
which means that basically, if you were to take that $23,000 as cash compensation instead of as healthcare compensation, you are paying a 30% nominal tax penalty.
Uh-huh.
So you have to get your coverage through your employer, or else you're essentially paying $7,000 to the government for no reason.
Right, it's a complicated mess that is filled with hundreds of profit-seeking entities, and
Every
it's
entity ever is profit-seeking.
except for governments.
Every entity.
Except for governments. They can be set up to where they're not seeking profit. There are, yeah, as I've said before, there are two powers, remember? Economic.
The profit
government.
motive is always the driver of innovation. It's the
I
driver of innovation.
am
It's the
not
driver
gonna
of progress.
disagree with that. I'm
And
not
governments
saying
are far less efficient in every scenario than a private company is. The situations where you see
and why?
governments
Why
excelling.
Why are they less efficient? Because they move carefully, and the company is incentivized to be a profit generation machine. That's the only reason they're more efficient, is because they want to produce a profit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can agree with that,
So
and I will
yeah.
argue that that is a good thing.
And it could be a good thing if we're making skateboards. But I don't want it to be a
Or
good
if
thing.
we're making medical devices.
Or if we're making medical devices. Yes, absolutely. But not medical insurance. Because
Insurance pays for the devices.
insurance doesn't pay for the devices. The government could pay for the devices, and it would be just fine. If the government paid for those devices, it would be just fine. It's still money. If the government paid the surgeon, still money. And they wouldn't keep a percentage of it, that 1% drop in the bucket. They wouldn't keep that 1% drop in the bucket. That 1% drop in the bucket would go towards the people, or the surgeon, or the beneficiaries, or the citizens. And it would be far less complicated. We wouldn't have to worry about the $28,000 that you have to take, or they take a. That's all overly complicated because of the profit motive. This entire, even beginning with the very beginning where you started, starts with profit motive. And this pricing power would go away. But that, what is pricing power? Profit motive. What is the competition? Profit motive. What is hiring a person, but that's capped, which again is a dumb idea that I don't think the government should have done, but they did it. I would have to read up on that exact act, but I think they did it to allow other companies to profit. The little guy couldn't afford $90 an hour for base labor. But the large companies can afford $90 an hour, so they paid him $90 an hour, and then the little guy goes out of business, and he can't make money anymore, and he's complaining to the government that he can't make profit anymore. Profit motive is fine if you're providing something, and I don't think insurers are providing a thing. Insurance isn't providing anything.
On that, I have to disagree.
Okay. What is the
Insurance
insurance company providing?
is providing security.
The
Essentially,
government
what
can't
you're looking
provide
at when you look
security?
at what?
The government provides security. They're always there.
And the government is terrible at it and everything else that it does.
Because profit motive
But
fucks them up. They're stumbled by profit motive. Profit-seeking individuals intentionally dive bomb and kill government intervention because they want to keep making profit.
Well, we looked last week at one of my examples for this, which is SpaceX versus NASA.
Mm-hmm.
SpaceX has a profit motive.
Yes.
NASA is a government entity.
Yes.
SpaceX can launch a rocket into space at 10 times less the cost than NASA can.
And they did that because they're standing on NASA's shoulders. NASA invented all of the original equipment for getting into space. It
NASA has admitted
took
they couldn't even send their own astronauts to the moon again.
today, right? Because they don't have the funding to do it. But they invented all these things back in the 50s during the space race. It was the government paying all the scientists to invent a thing. Then they invented it, and
Then
SpaceX
a
is
private
standing
corporation
on
did it
those
better.
shoulders. They're standing on those shoulders. All the research that was done. Do you think that SpaceX didn't use the research that was done during the 60s during the space race? I bet they did.
Research is something that's cumulative. Of course, everybody uses the research
Right.
from previous generations
But
every
it's
time,
expensive.
private and public. And yes, it is expensive, but to suggest that they're just standing on the shoulders of giants, no, they've made their own innovations.
Based on those, they're at the middle part of the pyramid. They're standing on the lower parts of the pyramid.
They're,
They may not be at the top yet, and there may be more to go, but they are standing on that research. They're standing on the discoveries that were made by NASA, and they're making them better.
everybody's standing on
I
the
agree.
discoveries made by Isaac Newton when he
Yes.
discovered gravity because an apple fell on his fucking head.
Yes, we are.
What are you talking? I mean, like, what is this? This is
But
not
they
a
didn't-
matter of government being efficient or not. This is a matter of the fact that innovation happened. Yes, innovation happened. And back then, I mean, the argument could stand that a private company could probably have gotten to the moon better or faster and more efficiently than the government could have.
If
At
there's
the
a
same
profit
time,
motive.
if there was a profit motive for it,
Right.
yes, there is always a profit motive that drives this kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Always. Innovation is driven by profit motive. If you don't have profit motive, you don't have innovation. It's just not going to happen. Sorry.
Unless the government pays for it.
Which would be profit motive.
Would be a power motive, probably. But hey, we need to beat the Russians to the moon, and we will give you all this tax money to get us to the moon. That
Yeah,
is
all that tax
a
money.
power
Somebody
motive.
is making a profit on that, right?
No.
You have
the
to pay
government
somebody
isn't.
to do things.
The government isn't a profit motive device. It is a power
Who are you paying,
motive.
and for what purpose are you paying them, and how
That
much
person
and
is making a profit. The government
exactly
doesn't make a profit.
Everything is run on profit motive.
Right. Except for the government itself. The government pays people to do the work. That person is motivated by profit. The government isn't. The government wants a job done. It wants for either geopolitical power or the benefit of the people, and if they're working properly. If they're working improperly and they're a crooked government, then they would be working for their own profit. But usually, the United States works for either power or the improvement of their standing within the world, or the standing of the benefit of the people, working properly.
Tries to act in the benefit of the people.
Right.
The problem is it keeps fucking things up.
And why do they keep fucking things up? I mean, you know what I'm going to say.
Because it's the government.
Because
And it fucks things up.
the people who want profit,
Because the
profit
government
motive
is
fucks up the government.
because the government itself has too much bureaucracy because it is a government. Because everything in the government costs too much to run. Because it's inefficient. Because if you have a single fuck up in the government, that is going to cause you to implement new layers of bureaucracy, which result in additional costs. The government is not going to be as efficient as a private company, where the immediate impact of somebody fucking up is they get fucking fired.
I agree.
The
With all
government
of
is
those
not
things.
efficient, it's lethargic.
I agree with all of those things.
So why do you think that the government is the main why would you want to make the government the main proprietor of our healthcare industry?
Because
it's
you
ridiculous.
are not seeing the delineation that I'm trying to create between medicine and insurance. I don't want them to be in charge of healthcare. I don't want them to be telling doctors what to do. I don't want them to be making new drugs unless they have to. I
Hey,
don't
all of those things
want.
happen if the government is a single payer program.
No, it
They tell
doesn't.
doctors what they
No,
have
it
to. Yes, they
doesn't.
do,
No,
because they are the only ones paying for it.
they're the ones paying for it. They're not the ones making the decisions.
The
Single-payer
yes, they
healthcare is
are.
a system
If
in
you
which the
pay
government.
for it, you make the decisions. That is the beginning and end of that conversation right there. If you pay for it, you make the decisions.
If
The
you are
government in a
on
single
a.
payer program
Mhm.
is the one making the decisions. They tell the doctors what they're allowed to charge. They tell the doctors what they're allowed to do. They tell the
Horseshit.
doctors, hey,
No,
if you do this, you're fucked, etc.,
no.
etc., etc. All of that.
It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
that way. You can create a system that they don't do that. All they do is pay the bill. That's it. They collect the taxes from the people. They pay the doctors. That's it. That's all I want them to do. But in profit-seeking
There's
people
no
will tell
entity.
you, profit-seeking people are going to say what you just said. Profit-seeking
There is no
companies will say
entity,
what you just said.
government or otherwise, that will just foot the bill and not have any amount of control. That's ridiculous.
The idea can. I
Because
think that
guess
it
what? You're
can.
going to
It
have some
can.
doctors that say you're going to have some doctors that say, "Oh, this operation is worth $300,000,"
Uh-huh.
and it's not. It's worth 10,000.
That's what they're doing now under the insurance companies. The insurance companies are doing exactly that right now. That is happening.
No,
That is exactly
well, if the
happening.
doctors are doing that, that's a doctor's problem. That's not an insurance company problem.
That's why the insurance
That and in
is
fact, the fact is, you just touched on exactly what I was talking about.
Mhm.
The fact that employer-sponsored healthcare coverage necessitates the use of certain must-have hospitals, which is in that article,
Mhm.
one of them that I sent you,
Mhm.
means that those doctors that are overcharging have pricing power. However, if individuals can choose between their different healthcare um, insurers, then they can choose an insurer that just doesn't use that fucking doctor. And if enough people choose that insurer that just doesn't use that fucking doctor, that piece of shit doctor has to fucking reduce his prices in order to get clients. That's how the economy works. The problem is that
Except
when you have the employer-sponsored healthcare program, those must-have hospitals and doctors then get pricing power over those insurance companies, and the insurance basically has to bend over backwards to pay that money to that doctor or that hospital. With the government, you're saying that eliminating so making the government a single payer.
Mhm.
You do eliminate a certain amount of choice. It is that doctor's choice to charge however much it is that he wants for a certain operation, right?
Hold on. So
So,
wait, no.
if the government refuses to pay that amount, that is essentially the government saying, no, you're not allowed to charge this much. We won't pay you for it.
We're paying you X instead of X plus 3,000. Sure. The
We are
government says,
paying you X, which is another way of saying you're allowed to charge X amount.
who's charging?
The person providing the service, the doctor or the
They
hospital.
just say, hey, here's what we did. Here's what it costs. The government gives them the money. That's it. Okay, great. Now, how is.
Here's what we did. Here's what it costs. It was $300,000. Here you go.
Yes, the end. They get $300,000.
That's a horrible way of running
How is that a
things.
horrible
Are you
way of
kidding
running
me?
things? How?
No, because what if another doctor will do the same procedure just as well for $10,000?
Then we hire all those people who are now laid off from the insurance agencies, all those admin folks, and have them work for the government and check it. Make them GS-13s.
That is a ridiculous scenario.
And
I asked
how
you
is
a
that
very specific question. You're dodging the question.
I'm not. I'm telling you this, the mechanism in which case.
One doctor.
Great.
No,
Hit
one
me with
doctor
it.
charges $300,000 for the same procedure as another doctor charges $10,000. But you're saying the government should just pay out whatever it is the doctor asks for in either scenario.
Yes, and then there's ramifications, there's consequences and repercussions of doing that. The people in the health insurance agency who are now out of work, all those admins, become GS-13s, and they find that discrepancy. They find it and they say, hey, why are you charging this much? Why are you charging where it's this much? Here's what you should be doing. Here's where you should be getting your equipment, and here's where how you can lower that price. And here's what we will pay you next time. That's just admin stuff.
So you're arguing to increase the number of government employees to do exactly what the market already would do.
Yes, because the market is leaving 30 or 40 million Americans out. If it wasn't leaving 30 million Americans without health insurance, I wouldn't have a problem with the market. But the market is fucking up in its own way. The market is fucking up in the way that the market always fucks up, in leaving out the poor, leaving out the people who need the most help. The
Yes,
market.
we can subsidize those people to purchase their own
Why are we
insurance.
subsidizing?
They get to choose their own insurance.
What is subsidization?
We give them money.
The government gives them money. Why is the government giving people money that then give it to a corporation? Then the corporation then keeps some of that and then gives it to the doctor. Why don't we streamline this process and just give it right to the doctor?
Because number one, the government doing this is always going to be less efficient than a private corporation. And number two, because we should have a degree of choice. And number three, if people choose a less expensive plan than what the government would otherwise offer, we actually can save money that way. So if a person decides they don't have to go to the Cambridge hospital or whatever, then they can choose an insurance plan that doesn't include that provider.
Plans.
And they can go to
Again,
other hospitals.
overly complicating
Again,
the situation.
yeah.
Plans. Why are you choosing
yes.
plans? No.
What-
Nonsense. Go to the doctor. Doctor says
the-
you need X. X costs this. He charges the government that.
Different
end. That's all.
doctors cost different amounts, man.
In different doctors cost different amounts for the same treatment.
Yeah.
And why is
some
that?
of them are actually better at it
Profit-seeking
than
motive.
others too.
Profit-seeking motive.
And
is
some
why.
of them are justified in charging more because they're more consistent. They're less likely to fuck you up. They're more likely to do a better job. I mean, everybody's not the same in a vacuum. The market for services is different based on who it is that's providing it. I mean,
some doctors are better. Sure,
healthcare
but
is a complex system,
Great.
yes, but and
let's decomplex it. Let's streamline it a little bit. Let's
it's
take some of that
naturally complex.
It's naturally complex because
And it has to
profit-seeking
be.
motives have made it more complex. The companies want to make a profit, and if they are doing the market thing, which is leaving out the poor, the unemployed, and the people who can't pay for it, then the government comes in, steps in, and gives the people that money, and then they give it to a corporation, then gives it to a doctor. Then it's overly complicated. Let's simplify it a little bit. Single payer is much simpler. I know that it could possibly cause some. I mean, I know it's going to cause some upset when
Told you I don't care
Sorry.
about volatility in decisions.
I know, and I think it's the
I
right
think that we
decision.
should make decisions regardless of the volatility of them.
Okay.
It's not a question of the volatility; it's a question of the effectiveness. I think single payer is terrible.
I think the system we
In
have
fact-
now is terrible.
Again, looking at that free op ranking, every one of those countries in the top 9, none of them are single payer.
And the reason they're not single payer is because someone wants to make a profit.
And they're all doing better than the best single payer.
In crappy countries. You are right, and you
You're
have
not
a very
you
good point.
can't be suggesting that Denmark or Singapore or Taiwan or the UK are crappy countries, or New Zealand or South Korea.
I don't know why they're lower on this list. You have a very good list, and you have a very good point. I am suggesting that these numbers will be even higher if they went to a single payer model. But
With
we
no
can't,
evidence.
With no evidence, yes. I'm making a moral stand that they would be better. And I think that if we did, I think this number would go up, and this number might go down. But I know this number would go up.
Yes, it could go up as well if we adopted Switzerland's model.
I was looking at Switzerland on the wiki, but I can't see any amount of profit. I would be interested in how much profit their companies are making.
Well, you see there that Swiss residents are required to purchase basic health insurance, right?
I hate that idea. Why not just tax them and then give it to them anyway? And you're suggesting that it's because that government is inefficient, and I'm suggesting the government is inefficient because companies get in the way.
I'm suggesting that the government is inefficient because it's inefficient.
Okay, it
It
doesn't
just
have
is.
to be.
I mean-
It doesn't have to be. I'm telling you that government is inefficient because the profit motive isn't there, so they move slower. Fine, I agree with that. I recognize the fact that the government moves slower because they don't have a profit motive. But I'm willing to.
Government moves slower because it's not a private business that has, because the government has a certain amount of controls on it, right? It's going to be less efficient in every case because the instant you have one case where somebody defrauds the government, you're going to have a new set of a new iteration of bureaucracy that has to go in between whatever happened and the system that was defrauded, right?
Mhm.
There's a new layer that has to go there. It happens in all government systems. It's
a new
ridiculous.
check, a new balance, a new
Exactly. All these
thing
new
to be
checks
checked.
mean that your bureaucracy goes nuts. Essentially, is everything becomes far more expensive because in order to run that bureaucracy, you also have to hire more people, right? And that means that you're spending more to do the same thing that you otherwise would be able to do, to have a private corporation do. And any defrauding of that private corporation is on the private corporation. The government doesn't have that luxury.
And I agree that is a beneficial model for things that aren't life-saving. I think that is
Beneficial
a
model
beneficial
for
model,
everything.
except for the 30, 40 million Americans who don't have health insurance. It's
There
not
are no
beneficial for
Swiss
them.
people that have no health insurance.
There are no Swiss people that don't have health insurance.
And you know what? If we adopted their model, guess what? There wouldn't be any Americans that didn't have it either.
And how much profit would the companies make? If now here's what I'm gonna say. If we adopted the Swiss model, would these companies make less profit? And if they did, wouldn't they stand in the way of the government implementing it?
Eventually, they would.
They would. They would lobby people. They would tell
Well,
you that it's
I meant in
bad.
terms of losing profit.
Okay.
Potentially, they would lose some of their profit. Yes, they still might make a profit though.
Okay. But if it comes down to them losing 1%, they will spend and spend and spend to rally the people against it. They will lobby politicians to speak against it. They will lobby Ted Cruz, and he will go up there and he will say that this is socialized medicine and it's terrible and it's fascist and we're going to all die. That's what
Well,
will
we're
happen.
talking about a different
because profit
a
motive.
different problem. I
know.
agree with you that lobbying in politics is bad, but but that's not what I'm arguing here. I'm arguing against single payer.
Okay, I am suggesting that the Swiss model would be a step forward for us. I would accept the Swiss model if it were put forward, but it won't be put forward. And why won't it be put forward? Profits.
Yeah, it won't be
We
put forward because
can't
profits and because our
make profit.
government is corrupt. Yeah, I get it.
Well, because the government's corrupt? No, that's a
There's no problem with
corporation.
government because government is.
How is this a government problem?
Because it's corrupt.
By
Because it
and
won't.
what corrupts the government? What corrupts
People.
them? No.
The fact
Well,
that the government is run by people and
Okay.
and
What? Okay.
power corrupts and absolute
What
power corrupts
those
absolutely.
people? What corrupts those people? Profit.
Power
Money.
does too.
Power is corrupting, I agree, and it can be the only other thing that there's two things that corrupt people: power and money. And I think that the
What
I'm
about
out
desperation? I mean, no, lots of things corrupt people.
I think all corrupt. All. I mean, again, there's only two powers. I mean, I'm standing on that, and I will listen to you describe a third power, but I think it all falls under the same two. Uh,
Power and money. What about
right.
love? Do you think love can corrupt?
Can it corrupt?
Yeah.
Sure, but that would be under the power umbrella because you
What?
it's under power. Yeah. Tell me how love corrupts somebody.
Like, fuck, what was that? Um, God damn it. There it is. The Trojan War. Fought over Helen.
Okay. Um, I don't know that that's corruption. Just people doing things isn't corruption. People doing things that you don't agree with isn't corruption. Uh, Helena is kidnapped by someone who uh, either wanted power or money from that kidnapping, and then the people fought to get her back.
Oh, I see. So,
Corruption doesn't just mean something you
so
disagree
the
with.
the thing of power was to the kidnapping in the first place.
Hmm.
Okay.
So the person who kidnapped her either did it for one of two reasons. One, he wanted to ransom her, or two, he got some sort of geopolitical power by holding her. Uh, I don't know that that's falls under the uh, corruption, but if he did it because he absolutely loved her and he had to have her, I'd call that power as well. He does not have her. He doesn't have the power over her. He does not have her. She's over there and he ain't got her. And this upsets him. So he takes her either for that power. I think that's power.
Oh, I think
Is it
that maybe
corruption? I don't think so.
the maybe your idea here might be boiled down then, rather than from separating money and power, would be a matter of personal gain.
Which is, what do we call, what's that other word we use for personal gain? Profit. And
But profit has a monetary
yes, it has a, you're right.
connotation. No,
Okay.
I mean personal gain. Personal gain can
Yeah,
mean a number of things.
that's Der Willy Zermatt. That's old, what's his name? Nietzsche. Der Willy Zermatt, right there. The will to power. Um, uh, Philosophy of Nietzsche, the will to power describes being believed to be the main driving force in humans. Uh, so the idea is that you will always, if given a decision, if given four options, you will take the option that gives you the most power. Always. And
Well,
that's boiling everything down. Um,
yeah,
the guy who
that is human nature.
that's human nature. Great. Uh, there is only, and I think the only way we can avoid that human nature will put us into a free market, hyper capitalist world where you have to buy the oxygen that you're currently breathing, and you have to buy the insulin, and you have to buy the insurance so that you can not die. And I'm trying to overcome human nature in this situation. I recognize that uh, competition will happen for medicine. I'm okay with that. Competition will happen with EKG machines. I'm okay with that. If somebody creates a new MRI machine that doesn't require that entire, I've had an MRI before, and it is a gigantic machine that does all the things. If someone created a better one of those, and it worked, and it does a better job, it's more efficient, great. We should buy them. We should pay him. He should make a profit. But I don't see what health insurance is providing. They are middlemen that I think could be done away with. And I think they are middlemen who are skimming. They're middlemen who are skimming. And I think that the entire thing would be more efficient if there weren't middlemen skimming. And that is why I think single payer would be better. And I could be wrong, and you have given very good reasons for me being wrong right here with this chart. The United Kingdom is, as you said, a single payer, and they do not have middlemen skimming, hopefully. And if that hasn't solved the problem of the market, then maybe single payer is not as great as I thought it was. I still think it is preferable to the system we currently have, and would support a politician who pushed for it.
Well, I'm satisfied with that.
I thought you might be, because yeah, you've pointed it out to me right here with, hey, these people have single payer and they are not as high as Switzerland. So before we discuss this again, I would probably investigate why.
All right. Let's revisit this in 6 months.
Yeah, let's give it, we'll give it 6 months, something along those lines. So yeah, the power thing. What do you think of that? Am I way off in my rambling?
Power thing.
Where there's only two.
There's only two.
I mean, like
I would certainly think that there's got to be more. I mean, if you distilled everything down to power versus money, like it depends on what you're able to distill.
Well, normally I would
like,
call it people versus money. Like the moving your house, which I used as an example before. You have to move your house. You can either pay somebody with money, or you can get all your friends and the people power, and you can get your neighbor to help you carry a thing and stuff like that. Those are the only two ways to do anything.
I think people's motivations are a little more complex.
Motivations can be as complex as you want. You're moving because you're avoiding the draft. Sure, that's a motivation, but you're moving. So the only way to get things done falls in those two categories. Is there
power
a third?
And money.
Well, no, people and money. And sometimes
People and money.
People and money, yeah. Because I can't think of a third way to get anything done. I can give you a couple of basic examples. There's the garbage at my house. I have garbage. I need to get rid of it. What are my options?
I think I see what you're saying. My problem with that is that it's oversimplified. I think that you could even simplify it further by just saying people. Because money is a representation of a certain amount of value.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that going that far starts to complicate or not complicate, but starts to make scenarios murkier. I think that it sort of muddies the waters when it comes to actually looking at complex systems and then saying it all boils down to people and money. I think that you do have to look at the details, and yes, if you boil it down all the way, then sure, at the end of the day, there's somebody that's motivated by money. At the end of the day, there's a certain dichotomy where money paid for somebody to do something versus, well, actually, not even that, because in the end, money is paying for somebody to pay to do something.
Mm-hmm. So,
but again, money is just a representation of value.
mm-hmm.
So I can't agree with the idea that there's this dichotomy that exists. It's I'd rather look at the systems with all of its complexities, because the world is complex.
Sure, and those complex systems are built upon what I'm suggesting. There's garbage outside my house. I have a couple of choices. One, I pay somebody to take it. Two, I take it myself. It's the only two options there are. If there's skateboards, I want a skateboard. Either I buy one with money, or I build one out of wood and steel. I can't think of any other option. You trade one with somebody else, that's still kind of an economy thing. I barter 4 chickens with my neighbor for
building
skateboards.
One with wood and steel.
Mm-hmm. That's the
you're gonna have to purchase the wood. You have to purchase the steel.
Exactly. So
and also
economy.
You're gonna spend your own time building that skateboard.
Sure. But that's the
the purchasing of the skateboard is paying the money in return, and that money is a representation of the value that you otherwise would have gotten from doing it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a representation of the materials and the amount of time you would have spent.
Sure, I agree.
To purchase that skateboard.
Right.
So even people is in your dichotomy there. Even people is just money again.
Well,
so it's money and money.
No, the person could chop a tree or break a branch off of a tree or something along those lines and make a thing. Somebody could.
They spend time doing that.
Sure.
And that time has a certain amount of value.
Well, yeah, I mean, it has a value.
And people expect, usually, if they're doing something for someone else with their time, they expect to be compensated for it.
Right. That's why the money thing. So.
But the inherent fact that people are doing something with their time for somebody else, or in service to something else, or even in service to themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's the people side.
That's the people side, but it's always going to be compensated in the form of money.
Not always. You can volunteer to help out your community. You can volunteer to be on a school board. You can, I think sometimes small town mayors aren't paid technically for their work as mayor. These are all people things. You think that the school board ought to be run a certain way because it's better for your children. You go there, you volunteer to help them out, you help them guide them. This is people power. This is the rudimentary formation of a government.
That's still not just people power. Because if you weren't doing that yourself, you would have time to do something else.
Right, you could.
And otherwise, you would have to pay somebody else to do it.
Right, because that's the other power. You have people and then you have money. Sometimes they work together. Sometimes they are. You can do both to get a job done. Um,
The world's not going to be run by volunteers, man.
I'm not saying it's going to be run by volunteers. I'm suggesting that there are only those two powers. Those are the only two choices. And we need a little bit more of the people power and a little bit less of the economy power. What I'm getting at is the very earliest proto government. Uh, the people in your neighborhood get together and decide we don't want something, we do want something, and we all work together towards it. You know, that's the proto government, the very smallest amount of government that can be created. And then it gets bigger and it gets complicated and it gets more complicated and it gets more grand and large as you're in the federal level. But the point I'm going towards is if there is a problem, there can only be two solutions. The market
I
or the
disagree
government.
entirely.
The market or the government. You give me a third option. The market or the government.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, the market is typically the solution because markets actually solve themselves. It's when you have intervention in a market that that causes problems.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I was trying to illustrate with our healthcare debate. Is the government intervened in markets, and that intervention caused the healthcare problem that we have right now.
The
By implementing
market
a
was the
wage
problem to
price
begin
cap,
with. The market was the problem to begin with.
markets are always self-normalizing.
After all the people are harmed, maybe.
We've already agreed that sometimes things require a certain degree of pain before they become
Yes.
pleasant.
And if the amount of pain is going to be more than the people can bear, the government steps in. Or they step in because they are profit seeking themselves. I agree that governments are complicated, but there are still, again, either a government solution or a market solution. Those are the only two solutions to all problems. And I don't think
Sure.
that so there's no
What
third
I've been trying,
way.
what I've been illustrating here is that the government solution tends to cause more problems than it solves.
I think that is true because it's been poisoned by the market side.
The
I think
market is not an entity that makes decisions the way that the government is.
they don't make decisions.
And also,
Okay.
the government, or excuse me, the market is unending. You can make all of the government intervention that you like. The market is still going to be the market. It will still exist.
Mm-hmm.
It will not go away.
I agree. I don't want it to go away. I'm not suggesting that one of these is better than the other. I think that they have to work properly and balance the scales out right. I don't think that all government, all day, everything for all issues. I don't want a government issued skateboard. I don't want to have to fill out a form that says, hi, I would like to have a skateboard, and then it goes to a bureaucratic person who then determines that whether or not I need a skateboard and then how much they cost and how much they, I mean, that's 1984 shit. I don't like that. I don't want that. But what I also don't want is poor people dying from preventable diseases because they don't have money. We need to balance those scales. Company towns, like I don't want company towns where you go to work as a coal miner and you shop at the company store and they pay you in company scrip and you have to get out 7 tons of coal a day, but they're not regular tons. Those are long tons. Long tons are actually 2,200 pounds, and so they just change the rules on you. Hey, I got 14,000 pounds, but like, well, we measure in long tons, so it's actually 27,000 pounds. So then you have to get out more, and then they pay you in company scrip, and then you use the company scrip at the company store to buy a new pair of boots. That's a market run amok. It can go bad either way. You can go, I don't. suggest we go towards 1984, but I also don't want to live in a company town. Um, we need to meet somewhere in the middle between those two things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
I don't want to live in Amazonville. Yeah.
and we've already agreed that neither of us are that far on either end of the spectrum, though.
Right. So that is why I'm saying that there's only the two powers. And right now, we're closer to company towns than we are 1984.
We might be, but we're not close enough.
Okay. Not close enough. So, okay, let's imagine there is uh, a coal mining company town. Like, what prevents that problem?
You have some amount of regulation.
Right. Okay, great. So a government. So that I mean that's why I'm getting at these two powers that have to push and pull on each other to get just the right. And that's what we've been discussing, I suppose.
Here's one thing I'd like to discuss
Mhm.
is as you get closer to the more government-run system,
Mhm.
I suppose you could say.
Mhm.
And I know you're not a communist,
Mhm.
but the way that I would put it is that capitalism is a system of reward.
Okay. And you're seeking those rewards. Dig it. I'm on
Uh-huh.
board.
Communism, and the closer you get to it, becomes more a system of punishment.
No, it becomes a system of um, distribution.
Well, if you do the wrong thing, then you get punished for it, right?
It
So if
happens
you're the
under
doctor
capitalism,
that
right?
charges too much, then
The government says, "Hey,
somebody
we're
in the
not going to."
government goes, yeah, we're not going to let you do that. Also, we're now implementing specific amounts that you're allowed to charge.
Mm-hmm.
That is a system of punishment.
No, it's a system of regulation. It's a system of uh, distribution, like I said. Hey, this
Or
guy,
if the government says,
the
hey, you're
distribution
being
of money.
exploitative,
Mm-hmm.
now we're going to punish you for it.
No, they're going to redistribute. They're going to distribute the funds differently. The person who charges $100 for an X-ray and the person who charges $6,000 for an X-ray, that is just a bad distribution of the taxpayers' money. If they're doing it intentionally with harm, then maybe they would be punished. But I don't think, and even then, the regulation would just be most regulations just cause if you fight against a regulation, if you do the wrong thing under a regulation, generally you pay a monetary fine. And that doesn't that make sense? If you have a doctor
Yeah.
that is charging 100 and this doctor's charging 6,000, he's been doing it for years, then you would say this is a bad distribution. You're only allowed to charge 100, and here's a fine to pay back all that extra money that you got that you didn't need and weren't supposed to get and ought not to have gotten.
Well, I see what you're saying. The problem is that when you eliminate the profit motive from everything,
I don't want to remove it from everything. I just want to remove
or
it
even
from
from an
health
entire
insurance.
industry.
Health insurance. That's all.
So wait, you maybe I've been misunderstanding you. You want it gone from health insurance,
Yes, that's what I said that 5
but not
times.
health care.
Not health care. Just the insurance. Just the insurance.
No, I think I've already argued against this already as
Okay.
well. Because if you get rid of the health insurance, then the government then is the one that has to set price controls against competing markets for health providers. So
Yes, all of them get paid the same amount for
So the government ends up in
the
control
X-ray,
of
the prices. Yes,
the prices. Yeah.
a knee X-ray in Topeka should cost the same as a knee X-ray in Florida.
Why?
Why? Because it is basically the same, basically the same operation. I mean, imagine getting a knee X-ray at one hospital and then having it a different price at somewhere else. Why would it be a different price? Why would it be? Shouldn't we want it not to be?
No.
We want them
No,
to be
we
different
shouldn't want it to be the same. The same. Yeah, we want it to be different. Yeah.
because that leads to competition.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want that competition to exist
It
within the
does.
X-ray device. If you invent a new X-ray device and it works better, then great. We should all buy it and you should profit. But in the providing of the insurance, in the providing of the paying, competition only leads to overcomplication and people who are left out, and it leads to 40 million Americans not having health insurance, and then that leads
Suppose that somebody
them to
makes
complain.
a better X-ray machine.
Mm-hmm.
You have a cap on X-ray machines that you're willing to pay.
Wait a minute. What? Who's putting this cap? You're inventing this thing that I'm
The
not saying.
government does.
No, they wouldn't. Why would they
The
invent
government
that?
will absolutely cap whatever they're willing to pay for any device. It's how how it works. That's what
They
they do.
won't create a cap. They'll just say this is how much this operation costs. If you invent a new machine and you try and put it into the market, and the government thinks that they will benefit, then they could subsidize a hospital getting the new machine. But if it is a 1% increase,
The person
and a
who invents the
25%,
machine and sells it
mm-hmm.
is going to be driven by profit motive.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If they have a better machine than what's currently available on the market,
Mm-hmm.
they should be able to sell it for more than the current machine.
If that profits them, yes. If they could make the same machine cheaper and sell it for cheaper and then undercut the competition, that's acceptable. I'm okay with this. You have
Works as well. That is how innovation works,
and,
yes.
You have healthcare and insurance all tangled up together, and I'm trying to untangle them. It's two different things.
It's not going to happen. They will always be tangled.
They could be detangled if those middlemen weren't so powerful. And they have the money to hire the lobbyists. That's part of the untangling, is getting these middlemen who aren't doing anything. It's removing the parasite from the body. Yeah, it's going to hurt, and it's difficult because they've wound themselves in there. Oh, so tight. Oh, they're in there so deep, and you can't undo them because they have power to hang on, and they have the power to buy votes in the Senate and in the House, and they have the power, and they have that power from that money.
Agreed. The lobbying is bad.
Okay.
Um,
And I'm thinking that even if I wanted to try to, and all of my plans are stumbled, are prevented because of that lobbying, because of that power. What do lobbyists do? They promise money. And I think that being the source of all the problems is the source of all the problems. I know you have mentioned many times that the government always fucks up, but I think they're always fucking up because they're trying to keep the profit motive. They're trying to keep the profits going, or they're paid to fuck up.
Fucks up because the people that are in charge are not equipped to handle these situations that they're trying to address. Number one.
I could see that being a problem. If you don't
none
know what...
None of the people in the House of Representatives are economists. None of them are, um, they're, well, with the exception of a small handful. They're not economists. They're not doctors. They are not electrical engineers. They are not software developers. They are people who grew up very politically inclined, went to college, got some degree, typically,
In
went
law.
to law
I mean,
school.
most of them are law, yeah.
Well, you have to get an undergraduate before you can go to law school. They got some undergraduate degree. Some of them even fucking art and whatnot. Doesn't do anything to help society. Went to law school and then became politicians and started running for office and knocked on doors and told them all of their little plans, and now they're making decisions for the country. That's it. Is none of them are qualified to make the decisions on this stuff.
That's always going to be the case. When they go to law school, they have a bit more understanding of the law and the laws that are being in the legislature. The legislature passes laws, so they would have some sort of understanding about that.
They have as much understanding about the law as they like, but they don't have an understanding about the industries on which they are passing those laws.
No, they don't have as much understanding of electrical engineering as an electrical engineer who works in the field. But the electrical engineer in the field doesn't know the law. So, I mean, the only people who can make decisions are people who are good at it. We have to elect a representative, a person who we think represents our ideas and our values, because the government has to have some sort of representation. I think some things can be done via popular vote and some things can't.
Arguing that more things should not be decided by that vote. Because we have voted on a number of things that should not have been.
Right,
and every time we do, it causes new problems.
Every time we do, it causes new problems. Not everything. I mean, you are market-oriented, and I'm people-oriented, and then that's why we keep bumping into these disagreements.
I'm people-oriented.
Well, you're market-oriented.
I'm market-oriented because I think what the market does is typically in the best interest of most people.
I think what the market does is what's best for profit. And
I think that people act in a way that profits them.
People act in a way that profits themselves, sure.
Yeah.
And
the market is just an instrument.
At some point, well, the market is an ecosystem. I would say at some point, the profiting themselves might need to be curtailed. It might need to be controlled. We might need to say, hey, you guys, you can't be doing that.
Yeah,
because
you can't scam people, you can't defraud people,
you can't harm people,
you can't harm them intentionally.
Right. I mean, it would benefit me to take money to murder people, but we don't like that. We think that's bad. So we need some sort of governing body that can say, hey, that type of market is not allowed. So
yeah, but all that stuff fits within my side of the spectrum.
What, the government controlling the market?
No, the government saying, hey, you can't fuck people over on purpose like this.
I agree. So all I'm suggesting is that the market is this big right now, and the government is not controlling it properly. The government is.
Well, you're suggesting the government intervene and control it entirely in some cases.
Not entirely. Well, in the health insurance market, yes, there should be no health insurance at all. I mean,
which is why
say
I'm
there should be
placing
no.
you.
Yeah, sorry.
Which is why I'm placing you on a certain part of the spectrum that you might disagree with
Hmm.
on this in the capitalism versus Marxism dichotomy there.
Hmm. And that's why I would call myself a market socialist, is because we need markets for skateboards, we need markets for t-shirts, we need markets for headphones, we need markets for computers, we need markets for websites. We don't need markets for health insurance and the army. I don't want, what are they called now? Private military corporations or something, PMCs or whatever they're called. I do not think that's a good idea. I think that is a very bad idea.
We actually do need markets for both of those things.
We don't need
The markets
So,
drive the innovation and competition in the healthcare sector.
healthcare, not
And
health insurance.
well, health insurance is part of that market.
It doesn't have to
And
be.
then in terms of defense, the market does drive a certain amount of what we have in terms of recruitment. For example, if it's more lucrative to remain outside of the military than it is to join it, you have to have a different motivation to join it outside of the profit factor.
Hmm.
So the market is going to drive a certain amount of the army, and then there's also the materials that the army uses.
Hmm. I want that to be a market. If you want to buy equipment, pay the people. Great. But the overall driving, the decisions made by the army and the when to use them, when to do the thing, those shouldn't be decided by a profit-seeking individual. And that's all. And that's a completely different subject. But Kyle in chat brought up another good one. No prison markets. I agree. I don't want prisons to be run for profit. I do not want schools, elementary school through kindergarten through 12, to be run for a profit. Those are benefits to the people in the population, and those should not be run for a profit.
Hold on,
That
you said
needs to be
prison.
Prison should not be run for profit.
Prison being recognized as a sort of a social good.
Mm-hmm. So
Could we have private prisons would be the question.
No,
right?
I don't want that. I think that is a absolute fucking nightmare.
I said should.
Okay.
Should we have private prisons? Question mark.
Okay, sorry.
And the answer that you are giving is no.
No.
It's really not one I've given much thought to.
Okay. And maybe you haven't thought about it, and that's fine. There's a lot of things to think about. The reason I would say no is, how do you increase the profit of your private prison? The
Charge more for...
Right. Or, what's the other option? Cut the services you're giving to the inmates. Buy a cheaper bit of food. Scrape just a little bit off of that last piece of bread. Get them just a little bit less soap. Get them do they really need like 2 blankets? No, they could probably survive with 1. That is why I would be against a private prison, because those cost saving, those corners are harmful to the people. And yes, I know they're prisoners, but I don't also want them to be living in shit with 1 blanket and no food. There is a bit of inhumanity there that I wouldn't want. And I think that inhumanity would have come because of profit-seeking individuals.
I would have to say that while I see where you're coming from, and this is not a direct contradiction to what you're saying.
Mhm.
You cannot tell me that cutting costs is something that's unique to the private sector.
Cutting costs is a way to create profit, is it not? I mean, every company wants to cut costs. Every company.
So does the government.
So does the government. Yes, they would like to do that. They see a budget that is too large and they have to cut it down. But they aren't doing that to create a profit. They're doing that because their budget's too big, or they aren't getting enough tax dollars, or the tax revenue has decreased, or we need to put that money into something else within the government, and you are only getting 70% of what you did last year. The reasoning for that cut makes a difference. If the reason for that cut is because Congress passed a different budget and you got to be cheaper, fine, Congress made that decision. But if you're cutting from these prisoners because you want $7 more, I don't like that.
So your argument against cutting costs is the motive behind it, as opposed to the fact that the costs have been cut.
Sure, motives matter sometimes. And if the government goes into debt because of the way it's treating its prisoners, then let's discuss that. Let's figure out how to rein that cost in. Is there any way we can do it? And then we make a decision, our lawmakers or our Congress and our House debate the idea, figure out what's causing the increase in costs, and if it's because we're giving them too much or we're providing them things that they don't need, we can scale that back. That makes sense. I'm okay with that debate happening. You and I could ideally meet in a room, figure out how much the cost is, and then come to an agreement on how much taxpayer money that program gets based on the amount of good that it does. And if we're not trying to turn a profit, I would trust it more. But if you and I own a corporation and that corporation is imprisoning these people, you and I get more money the less we give to the prisoners. Does that make sense? The less we give to them, the more we get to keep. I don't trust that. Do you see how I could not trust it?
Oh, I certainly do. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, I don't have a position on private prisons one way or the other.
Yeah, and that's fine.
I wanted to point out an observation there.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm in and that's kind of the same boat I'm in with the health insurance. If the government decides that X-rays cost $100, and there's a problem with that, somebody could, and I know it would be bureaucratic and I know it would be slow, but they would go to the government and say, hey, this is too little. It costs this much, and they would put together a cost-benefit analysis, something along those lines, and say we're not doing them because we don't make enough money, and then possibly the House or the committee that's in charge of pricing these things would change the price. But I don't trust an insurance company because they make more money the less they give to their customers. The less they give, just like the private prison, the less they give to the customers, the less they give to the prisoners, the more money they keep. And maybe it's just me not trusting the market. Maybe it's me just not trusting people with money. And you're right. About the government could be just as corrupt. The government can be corrupt as well. The person on that committee deciding that they're $10 instead of or deciding that they're $100 instead of $10 could own stock in the damn X-ray company.
Yeah, that is always the possibility. yeah.
I think we did a good job here today. I think we went all over the place. We rambled a bit, but I like the thing you brought, um, and I will look into it, and we can discuss it in the future.
Absolutely. What are we talking about next week?
Next week, I don't know what is next week. We haven't done anything about movies or uh, culture anymore, or lately. We haven't done any movies. I always want to fight about the culture war. Um, and shoot, um, any movies? Or the only reason we were talking about the movies is because I think that it's interesting to uh, hear a conservative's idea on what is and isn't good for society and things like that. Hey Kyle, you're still watching? What do you want us to talk about next week? Um,
Yeah, I mean, good for society in movies.
the word degeneracy. What about that?
The word degeneracy.
It is a loaded term, isn't it?
Certainly, certainly. Um, when I think degeneracy, I really think about what do I think about? It's sort of nebulous, isn't it?
Yeah,
Uh,
the word degeneracy. It's used a lot, isn't it?
it
We,
is, and it sort of encompasses a lot of different things, doesn't it?
it does. It's all over the place. Um, I think it is
Kyle says movie culture.
movie culture from Kyle. Yeah,
I thought we discussed that already,
we
though.
did a little bit, but and then the reason we did it is because I am fighting the culture war. I'm suggesting that the culture war is bad and ought not to exist, but that leads into degeneracy and the term itself.
That one's
Maybe.
going to be, so as I think about it, we could talk about it. It's going to be a really protracted discussion.
Based on the definition, or what some people think it means, or what some people think it doesn't mean.
Well, into the definition, and then it would be what behaviors I think are degenerate.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you'll oppose me on almost all of them.
Oh, I just think it's a shit word
Uh,
that doesn't mean anything.
and
It means whatever you want it to mean. It is. I consider the word similar to that thing I brought up earlier about colleges and DeSantis calling it what was the word he used for the college courses? Trendy ideologies. It's exactly the same. It means nothing. It means whatever you want it to mean. But we can discuss that later.
yeah,
I'll.
that works for me.
Okay. Cool.
Message me sometime this weekend about what the actual topic will be, and
Yeah.
I'll look into it.
Okay. Do you want to do culture war? Or do you want to do more concrete things? If you come
I
up with a
like
concrete
I like
thing,
staying in the space of ideas.
Okay.
Just like with healthcare and whatnot. I mean, um, culture war is fine, except that my usual stance on it is you can have your culture war as long as you entertain me. You know, like I just want to see well-written, good content.
Okay.
So that's the beginning and end of my stance, really.
Okay.
Um,
Cancel culture then. So I think
cancel culture.
yeah, because I think degeneracy falls into that discussion.
Does it really?
Absolutely.
You'll have to send me a message on how that is possible in order
Okay.
for me to look into it.
Okay. Cool. They're I think the two sides of the same coin. But it has been long enough. I have to go to the bathroom and do some work around the house. So as usual, it's a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, I had fun.
Thanks, chat, for chiming in. Super good to have you here.
Thanks,
And
Kyle.
now call it chat. It'll suggest to people that there are more than one person in there.
It's
And
just one.
no, there's
It's Kyle.
thousands. There's thousands of people in there. Uh, Alrighty, and that's it. If you have anything, always hit me up on the YouTube channel. Suggestions for topics, what to talk about, and I appreciate it. I'll talk to you next week.
Peace out.
All right.